Hi, everyone. This is our episode of a multi-part series beginning with the title of Who Would Apostle John Likely Have Believed Was at Least an Antichrist if he read this person's writings? And each episode will be 10 minutes long. This is part one. And when you want to see the other episodes, just go to the description and you'll see a link to all of the other episodes. So let's begin. Okay, so we're going to begin with 1 John 2:18, which is one of the two passages where John in this epistle mentions the Antichrist or an Antichrist. And this is the Mounce's reverse interlinear. These are the words it provides as the default definitions that they would use for each word. My children, it is the last hour, and just as you heard that the Antichrist would come, even now many Antichrists have appeared. So I want you to emphasize attention on the word you heard. So he is saying it's already been declared somewhere, and we're going to investigate where that was as part of this episode. But regardless, he's going to define in the next verse how you recognize the Antichrist or an Antichrist. Okay, so let's read the next passage that talks about an Antichrist. This is from 1 John chapter 4, verses 2-3 in the King James Version. Hereby know you the Spirit of God. Every spirit that confesses that Jesus Christ is come in human flesh is of God. Verse 3, and every spirit that confesses not that Jesus Christ is come in human flesh is not of God, and this is that spirit of Antichrist, whereof you have heard that it should come, and even now already is it in the world. So I've added the word human there, and I'll explain that now. Sarx is the word in Greek. And Mounce's definition, if you look there, I've highlighted every time it's just he's describing it as a human body, human nature, human frame, humanity, human beings, human. So why is he doing that? Because that's the word, and he does it 5 times. And the word is right there, human. The word sarx is here in verse 2. So the definition of who is the Antichrist or is an Antichrist is somebody who's going to come and tell you that Jesus Christ did not come in true human flesh. He only appeared to be that. And there's a word we have in the church history used based on a Greek word, and it's called Docetism. And it's a claim that Jesus did not have true human flesh. For example, wouldn't suffer pain if you stabbed it. It was not really human. But Jesus only appeared to have human flesh. Okay, now please note it says here in verse 3 that you have heard that it should come, this Antichrist. And he said that in 1 John chapter 2, same thing. You have already heard this, right? Let's go. So there it is in 1 John 2, verse 18. You heard that the Antichrist would come. So where is this in the Bible? We don't see any other reference, but there was originally a reference in Matthew 24, and that's important. So we're going to go restore that, and so you can see how that works. All right, so there's something called the Hebrew Gospel of Matthew, and Professor Howard published this in 1989 and again in the 1990s. And basically, in the 1300s, the Jewish scholars were put on a burden throughout all Europe to collect the original records of the Christian Hebrew Gospel of Matthew, which is all they had in Hebrew from the very early times. They kept it. And why were they being compelled to go dig this up from all over their community? Okay, the reason is that the King of Aragon and the King of Spain had forced the Jewish scholars to defend Christianity in debates. In the 1300s, they thought this was great sport. But the Jewish scholars were told, you can't win the debates, so don't go too far, but we want to hear your counter arguments. And the Christian scholars were supposed to debate them and destroy their arguments. That was the idea of it. So anyway, the Jewish scholars, were basically almost under pain of death if they didn't do it. And they thought, well, this is a good opportunity to state our position. So they went, but they had to have our original manuscripts. And so they kept them for centuries from the very beginning. And so you say, well, how do we know it's from the very beginning? Well, there's very easy clues to figure it out. When you look at our Greek text, you can see it's a translation of Hebrew words where just by one letter mistake in reading or whatever, it comes out locusts is what John the Baptist is eating instead of what it actually said is manna. So you just change that one letter and you make a mistake and you come up with locusts instead of manna or honey cakes. So anyway, this is where this word Antichrist appears earlier in time than when John is writing his epistle, that you can prove by what I just said. So in other words, this is what the Jewish people did. We have proof, for example, an example I just gave you about the locusts and the honey cakes, or the pancakes, or manna, whichever way you want to translate it. And that's what that's why we know this manuscript goes all the way back to the beginning, earlier than the Greek translation of the Greek Matthew. Earlier, it definitely had to be earlier. So let's read the verse and let's see what the context is. Verse 15 of Matthew 24. So this is the Antichrist, and this is the abomination that desolates, which was spoken of by Daniel as standing in the holy place. Let the one who reads understand. Now let me show you it in the original book, so you don't think I'm making it up. All right, so here is the text. I screen captured it for you, and here's the book. If you're interested, it's worth buying. It's not cheap, I don't think. It's some dollars, but this is in the 1995, his second edition. So this is his last edition of this. And again, this is where it would be prior to John writing his epistle. And he said, "You have heard," and he said that twice in 1 John 2 and in 1 John 4. And the other thing I want you to understand is, because this is a main point I'm going to be bringing out, is the Antichrist has to come before the temple falling. And do you see how this is juxtaposed with the temple falling? So this is the Antichrist, and this is the abomination that desolates, which was spoken of by Daniel as standing in the holy place. So this Antichrist must cause an abomination of desolation of the temple. And we're going to see there is a figure in Acts 21 who is involved with somebody who is brought into the temple, a friend of his from Ephesus, who then abominates the temple, causing the Jews of Asia to go in a tirade to try to condemn this person and have him arrested. And we're not going to get into who it is at the moment, because I don't want you to leap to conclusions. I want to go step by step by step. Okay, let's continue. So let's next go to this question. Did Jesus say in the original Hebrew Matthew, in chapter 24, the Antichrist or Antichrists come only before the temple falls in 70 AD? So you already saw that. He said, this is the Antichrist and the abomination that desolates, spoken by Daniel. Therefore, Jesus is saying these two things are related. The Antichrist must be the one who causes the abomination. Doesn't that make sense? So that's a time delimiter. So we're not going to have a different Antichrist come after the temple falling. So he's saying it's coming only before. That doesn't mean the Antichrist doesn't have doctrines that persist and have influence over the centuries that follow. But we will not see the Antichrist at the end of time. That's never spoken about in Revelation. It speaks about a beast. But an Antichrist is a very different type of figure. It's a person who says, I am Jesus. Jesus says he's going to come in my name. He's going to use my name, and it's going to be such a good deception that many people will fall for it, even the elect, if that were possible. But clearly people who are unelect, people who haven't been yet saved, clearly would be the easiest prey for this Antichrist to appeal to them or their ego or whatever it is, to believe this is the Lord Jesus and then promote that figure over and above and against the true Jesus of the earth. All right, so let's specifically point out how many times was the word Antichrist or Antichrists ever mentioned in the book of Revelation? Do you remember how many times? I'll tell you the answer. 0. How many times in any other epistle than John's epistle? 0. How about in the Gospels? 0, unless you restore it to the book of Matthew, which obviously it's justified because of the evidence I told you before. So literally, there is no prediction that an Antichrist is coming at the end of time, and that's the sign of the end. No, it's actually the sign of the temple going to be destroyed. This person or persons or a false Jesus misleading a person, it's all going to work the operation of the Antichrist. And they'll teach, this person or persons will teach that Jesus did not come in true human flesh. Okay, so that's going to end this part 1 because I'm keeping everything under 10 minutes. We're at 9 minutes, 47 seconds. And the first panel or slide will be about Paul's view that Jesus only appeared to be a man. So you're going to now get down into the nitty gritty of proving what who is the Antichrist. And it may not be Paul. It may actually be the Jesus whom Paul thinks he met on the road to Damascus. So we'll talk about that possibility in the next episode. So please don't turn off your bat channels. Please come back. All right. God bless. Take care. Ciao. Bye.